This is a seed phrase. 24 words, written on a steel plate designed to survive fire, flood, and time. The words are English. Common words like abandon, ability, abstract, arranged in a specific order that means nothing to anyone who reads them, but everything to the person who created them. These 24 words control 3.7 Bitcoin. At today's prices, approximately $366,000. The Bitcoin doesn't exist on this steel plate. The Bitcoin exists on a network of computers distributed across 14,000 nodes in 97 countries. What exists on this plate is access, the cryptographic key that proves ownership and authorizes transfer. If I lose this plate, I lose the Bitcoin. If someone steals this plate, they steal the Bitcoin. If I die without sharing these words, the Bitcoin becomes inaccessible forever, still visible on the blockchain, still technically existing, but permanently beyond anyone's reach. This is what Bitcoin was designed to be. Money that depends on nothing except your ability to secure 24 words. No bank, no government, no institution between you and your wealth. Now look at this. A Coinbase account statement, dated January 30th, 2026. The statement shows a balance of 3.7 Bitcoin, the same amount as the seed phrase controls. The account holder believes they own 3.7 Bitcoin. Their statement says 3.7 Bitcoin. Their portfolio tracker says 3.7 Bitcoin. But they don't own Bitcoin. They own a claim, a promise from Coinbase that if they request withdrawal, Coinbase will send Bitcoin to an address they specify. The promise has conditions, terms of service that run 47 pages, compliance obligations that reference federal regulations, withdrawal limits, verification requirements, and provisions allowing Coinbase to restrict access during periods of market stress or regulatory uncertainty. The seed phrase holder owns Bitcoin. The Coinbase account holder owns a promise. For 11 years, the distinction didn't matter. Coinbase honored withdrawal requests. The promise functioned identically to ownership. People who couldn't be bothered with seed phrases and hardware wallets got the same economic exposure as those who managed their own keys. In the next 60 days, the distinction will matter more than anything else in cryptocurrency. What's coming for the space, what regulators have built, what exchanges have accepted, what most crypto holders don't see, will split the market into two categories: those who own cryptocurrency and those who merely think they do. The warning I'm about to share is not about price. It's not about whether Bitcoin goes up or down. It's about whether the Bitcoin on your screen will be Bitcoin you can actually access when you need it most. Here's what they're not telling you. On January 15th, 2026, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network published a final rule titled Enhanced Due Diligence Requirements for Convertible Virtual Currency Transactions. The rule is 847 pages long. It received minimal media coverage because it published on the same day that news about European banking stress dominated financial headlines. The rule takes effect February 5th, 6 days from now. The implementation window is 21 days from publication to enforcement, the shortest for any major financial regulation in FinCEN's history. Page 312 contains the provision that changes everything. Under the header, Custodial Wallet Providers, Transaction Monitoring and Restriction Requirements, the rule mandates that all U.S. registered cryptocurrency exchanges implement automated transaction screening with mandatory 72-hour hold periods for withdrawals exceeding $10,000 equivalent, pending enhanced verification of recipient address ownership. Let me translate that from regulatory language. Starting February 5th, if you try to withdraw more than $10,000 in cryptocurrency from any U.S. exchange, your withdrawal will be delayed for at least 72 hours, while the exchange verifies you control the destination wallet. The verification process, detailed in Appendix C, requires proving ownership through cryptographic signature, providing identity documentation for the receiving address, and, critically, disclosing the destination address to FinCEN's new Blockchain Analytics Unit for monitoring and pattern analysis. Every self-custody wallet that receives more than $10,000 from a U.S. exchange will be logged in a federal database. The address, the owner's identity, the transaction history, permanently linked, permanently tracked, available for analysis by Treasury Department officials. But that's not the provision that should concern you most. Page 347 details Emergency Restriction Authority. In the event of market volatility, cybersecurity incident, or national security determination, custodial wallet providers may implement temporary withdrawal restrictions without advance notice, pending regulatory guidance on appropriate customer protection measures. The exchanges now have explicit federal authorization to freeze withdrawals, without warning, without explanation, without timeline, whenever regulators determine that market volatility or national security justifies restriction. Market volatility is not defined. It's whatever FinCEN says it is. The discretion is total. The recourse for affected users is none. The rule constructs a regime where cryptocurrency on exchanges exists at the pleasure of regulators. The withdrawal that was your right under exchange terms of service becomes a privilege that can be revoked when authorities decide revocation serves their purposes. This is where the lie becomes unsustainable. The cryptocurrency industry marketed exchange custody as equivalent to self-custody. Not your keys, not your coins, became a meme that sophisticated holders repeated while mass adoption pushed millions toward the convenience of custodial platforms. The marketing was always partially false. Exchange-held cryptocurrency has always been subject to exchange policies, platform risks, and the possibility of corporate failure. FTX proved this catastrophically in 2022, when customer funds that were supposed to be segregated turned out to be missing entirely. But the marketing is becoming completely false. The FinCEN rule doesn't just affect how exchanges operate, it transforms what exchange-held cryptocurrency actually is. Under the new framework, cryptocurrency on U.S. exchanges is a regulated financial asset subject to surveillance, restriction, and control that the underlying protocol was specifically designed to prevent. It's not Bitcoin with extra steps. It's a different asset class entirely, one that shares Bitcoin's price exposure, but none of Bitcoin's fundamental properties. The paper versus physical distinction that has defined precious metals analysis now applies to cryptocurrency with even greater precision. Custodied crypto is paper crypto, a claim on an asset controlled by someone else, subject to their compliance with regulations you didn't agree to and can't influence. Self-custodied crypto is physical crypto, actual control, actual ownership, verifiable on a public blockchain that doesn't know or care about FinCEN rules. The protocol processes transactions based on valid cryptographic signatures, not regulatory approval. The 72-hour withdrawal holds, the address disclosure requirements, the emergency restriction authority. None of this applies to cryptocurrency you already control. The seed phrase on my desk authorizes transfers that no regulation can prevent. The Coinbase account statement represents transfers that regulations can now delay, surveil, and potentially block. The distinction was theoretical until February 5th. After February 5th, it becomes operational. When institutions do what they're doing now, they're not adapting to new rules. They're acknowledging that the rules fundamentally change what they offer. At 11:15 a.m. Eastern on January 27th, Coinbase filed an 8K supplement with the SEC. The filing disclosed implementation of enhanced compliance infrastructure to meet requirements of FinCEN Rule 2026-1, effective February 5th. Standard regulatory disclosure. But the filing included language that analysts flagged immediately. The company anticipates that compliance implementation may result in temporary service limitations during the transition period, including potential delays in withdrawal processing as verification systems are calibrated. Additionally, the company has updated customer agreements to reflect regulatory authority permitting withdrawal restrictions during designated market conditions. Potential delays in withdrawal processing. Restrictions during designated market conditions. Coinbase is telling you, in SEC-mandated disclosure, that withdrawing your cryptocurrency is about to become slower, more surveilled, and potentially unavailable during periods regulators designate as problematic. Kraken filed similar disclosure on January 28th, Gemini on January 29th. Every major U.S. exchange is simultaneously warning customers that the relationship between account balances and accessible cryptocurrency is changing. The warnings are buried in regulatory filings most customers never read. The terms of service updates are accepted through checkbox clicks that nobody examines. The transformation of exchange custody from convenience to control is happening with explicit disclosure but minimal awareness. The institutional behavior reveals what the disclosures obscure. Since January 15th, the date the FinCEN rule was published, cryptocurrency exchange balances have declined by 147,000 Bitcoin, the largest monthly outflow since the FTX collapse. Money moving from exchanges to self-custody at a pace that shows sophisticated holders understand exactly what February 5th means. The outflows accelerated after the 8K filings. Each disclosure confirms that exchange custody is becoming something different than it was. Each confirmation motivates additional withdrawal. The exchange's own regulatory compliance is driving the exodus from their platforms. Less than 6 days remain before the new rules take effect. The withdrawal queue at major exchanges has already extended, Coinbase reports 48 to 72-hour processing times for large withdrawals, and the 72-hour holds mandated by FinCEN haven't even begun yet. The countdown is not to a single event, but to a regime change. Before February 5th, withdrawing cryptocurrency from exchanges is a standard operation. After February 5th, withdrawing becomes a surveilled, documented, potentially restricted privilege. The window for moving from custodied to self-custodied crypto, for converting paper claims to actual ownership, narrows with each passing day. The sophisticated money recognized this immediately and acted. The 147,000 Bitcoin exodus represents understanding translated into action. While Western exchanges implement surveillance, Eastern alternatives maintain access. At 8 a.m. Singapore time on January 28th, 7 p.m. Eastern the previous day, the Monetary Authority of Singapore published updated guidance for cryptocurrency businesses. The guidance explicitly declined to implement withdrawal restrictions comparable to FinCEN requirements. Singapore exchanges will continue processing withdrawals to self-custody without mandatory holds, without address disclosure to government databases, without the surveillance infrastructure the U.S. now mandates. The regulatory arbitrage is immediate and obvious. Americans who want unrestricted cryptocurrency access can establish relationships with Singapore-based exchanges. The withdrawal restrictions the U.S. imposes simply drive business to jurisdictions that don't. Dubai has emerged as another alternative. The UAE's Virtual Asset Regulatory Authority explicitly permits unrestricted withdrawal to self-custody. Hong Kong, despite China's broader crypto restrictions, allows withdrawal without the surveillance requirements FinCEN imposes. The cryptocurrency industry is bifurcating geographically. Jurisdictions that respect self-custody as a legitimate choice attract exchanges, developers, and capital. Jurisdictions that treat self-custody as suspicious activity to be monitored lose competitive position to those that don't. The United States, once the center of cryptocurrency innovation, is becoming a jurisdiction that sophisticated holders avoid. The FinCEN rule doesn't ban cryptocurrency. It makes American cryptocurrency different from cryptocurrency everywhere else, surveilled, restricted, controlled in ways that contradict the technology's fundamental purpose. The BRICS nations' January summit produced language that Western analysts have parsed carefully. The working papers on digital assets included explicit protection for self-custody. Member states recognize that self-custodied digital assets represent sovereign individual property rights, not subject to routine institutional monitoring, absent specific legal process. The BRICS bloc is codifying self-custody protection, while the U.S. imposes self-custody surveillance. The regulatory divergence creates two cryptocurrency ecosystems, one where the technology operates as designed, one where the technology operates under institutional control. The capital flows toward freedom. The sophisticated holders, the whales, the institutions that understand what cryptocurrency actually is, they're moving to jurisdictions that don't treat self-custody as inherently suspicious. They're establishing infrastructure outside American regulatory reach. The geographic shift that began as a trickle is becoming a flood. The FinCEN rule accelerates a migration that was already underway, pushing capital and innovation toward jurisdictions that welcome what America restricts. This is what a system looks like when it reaches a bifurcation point. The cryptocurrency that exists on exchanges and the cryptocurrency that exists in self-custody are becoming different assets with different properties, different regulatory treatment, and, eventually, different values. The trap has no clean exit for those who wait too long. After February 5th, converting from custodied to self-custodied cryptocurrency creates records in federal surveillance databases. The addresses you withdraw to become known, linked to your identity, trackable through blockchain analysis combined with FinCEN data. Before February 5th, conversion creates minimal records. The withdrawal process is under current rules. The receiving address isn't automatically reported to federal agencies. The link between your identity and your self-custody wallet remains private. The privacy difference is operational, not academic. Self-custody cryptocurrency that authorities know you control isn't fully self-sovereign. It's subject to legal process, asset seizure demands, and compliance pressure that operates through you personally. Self-custody cryptocurrency that authorities don't know about retains the properties that make self-custody valuable. The window for establishing private self-custody closes February 5th. Not because self-custody becomes illegal, it doesn't. Because self-custody established through exchange withdrawal becomes surveilled. The choice after February 5th is between known self-custody and unknown exchange custody. Before February 5th, Unknown self-custody remains possible. The sophisticated holders understood this instantly. The 147,000 Bitcoin exodus represents capital securing private self-custody before privacy becomes unavailable. The exodus will continue until February 5th, when the rules change and the window closes. The question for every cryptocurrency holder is simple. Do you want to own cryptocurrency, or do you want to own claims on cryptocurrency held by institutions that now explicitly state they can restrict your access whenever regulators direct them to? The seed phrase and the Coinbase statement both say 3.7 Bitcoin. They represent fundamentally different things. The seed phrase represents ownership. The statement represents a promise that now comes with 72-hour holds, address surveillance, and emergency restriction authority. The warning is not that cryptocurrency will decline. The warning is that custodied cryptocurrency and self-custodied cryptocurrency are diverging into separate asset classes. One class retains the properties that made cryptocurrency valuable. One class surrenders those properties for regulatory compliance. The 60-day time frame reflects how long the current transition takes to fully manifest. February 5th activates the rules. The following weeks reveal how the rules operate in practice. The following months reveal how the market reprices the distinction between surveilled and sovereign cryptocurrency. Those who hold self-custody now, who secured their positions before February 5th, who established addresses that aren't linked to their identities in federal databases, hold one asset. Those who hold exchange balances, who trusted convenience over control, who believed that not your keys, not your coins was a meme rather than an operational warning, hold a different asset. The difference will manifest in accessibility, in privacy, in the ability to transact without institutional permission, eventually, perhaps, in price, as markets recognize that sovereign cryptocurrency and surveilled cryptocurrency serve different functions for different holders. The warning is not that doom approaches. The warning is that the cryptocurrency you think you own may not be cryptocurrency at all, not in the sense that matters, not in the sense that the technology was designed to enable. The seed phrase controls Bitcoin. The exchange account controls a promise. The promise just got a lot more conditional. 6 days remain. The rules take effect February 5th. The window for private self-custody closes. The warning has been delivered. The sophisticated holders have already acted. The 147,000 Bitcoin exodus shows what those who understand are doing. The question is whether you understand, and whether you act on that understanding before the window closes. The steel plate with 24 words sits on my desk. The Coinbase statement sits beside it. They both say 3.7 Bitcoin. Only one of them is telling the truth about what that actually means. The truth becomes operational in 6 days. Position accordingly.